Vishnupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Kacharni Nirvisesa Sanyavare Pasachachare Satani. Hare Krishna. Thank you for those who've come this afternoon. We've of course been all of these days leading up to Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, which is on the 8th of this month. We started this Prabhupada in the afternoon here in Balaram Hall on the 28th. So 4 days, 12 days we've been doing, having Prabhupada's disciples, different disciples. I believe tomorrow is Lokanath Maharaj, and then the day after that will be Vijay Mataji and Nagapatni Mataji, and then others are here. Of course, Bhima Prabhu is here and his wife. So, we're here in Balaram Hall. I can still smell the lunch prasadam. So I thought this session, of course I'm here kind of by Dharmatma's arrangement. He was very happy to have the day open today and announce me to speak today. So we have a good amount of time, and I thought I would try my best to stay on track of Prabhupada's pastimes here in Vrindavan, at least while I was with him. And sometimes the things I plan on talking about and what I actually talk about, they can change. But for the most part, I thought I would at least start at the beginning of coming to Vrindavan with Srila Prabhupada. And some of you have heard these things once, twice, maybe more. Some of you haven't heard them at all. But in any event, just like we're hearing from Krishna book every morning, pastimes of Aghasura, Lord Brahma stealing the cows and calves, or the calves and the cowherd boys. These stories about Srila Prabhupada, they're always relishable. As we know, Prabhupada, he's our everything. About a week ago, I gave a class, and Prabhupada was very, very careful and very strict, we can say. With us, he was very compassionate, and as he said, he was very lenient. When Allen Ginsberg says, "You're so strict, so many rules and regulations," and Prabhupada laughed and said, "No," he said, "I'm very lenient." He said, "If I was to give you all the rules and regulations," he said, "then who could follow? Who would come?" But he was very strict, and we could even say fanatical in some ways, of how again and again he made sure that we recognized him, as he would say on all of his books, A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Swami, founder Acharya, on everything that was there. Srila Prabhupada always made sure, founder Acharya of this ISKCON society. So in that way he was very strict. And I mentioned in class different situations. Once it was with one of the books printed by BBT. And another time when he chastised the devotee in charge of BBT in Los Angeles, when it had moved from New York to Los Angeles. And they had an immense warehouse, BBT warehouse, of course all filled. Srila Prabhupada's books, it was like, the ceiling was like 20 feet, 7, 8 meters high. Pallets going from the top to the bottom. They had a forklift. So all these books were there. And Prabhupada's pleasure, his joy was always seeing his books. And of course, those books distributed, not that they would just stay in the warehouse, but they would just go there for a short time and get distributed. As he said at different times, these books, Krishna was in every word. And when he would read them, as he did every afternoon, most every afternoon, Prabhupada read his books. And when I first became his servant, I found that to be so fascinating, that he was reading his books. After spending so many hours in the morning translating Srimad Bhagavatam, in the afternoon he would just sit down and read what he had translated, what had been printed. Maybe it was around for a month, 2 months, 2 years, 3 years. And when he would read it, as he said, he was amazed. Who has written these books? He said, I have not written. He said, Krishna has dictated. So these books were the most important thing to this day. You can see Daiva Shakti, she gave class the other day, and she said, when she came here back in 1976, when she said, Prabhupada, I'll go to Radhakund. There they have many temples of all the various temples in Vrindavan. We could have Krishna Balaram temple there in Radhakund. And Prabhupada just smiled and said, yes. But then she understood what Prabhupada wanted. And what all the previous acharyas wanted was that preaching mood, to give Krishna to others. This is the most important thing. And the easiest way to get Krishna's attention. Because after all, that's what we want. We want to get Krishna's attention. Like with kirtan. It says so many times when different devotees, Madhvisa Prabhu, when he was big kirtan leader in the 60s, 69, 68, 70. Then of course he went to Australia. They opened up temples in Australia, brought the deities to Australia. Prabhupada went there so many times. But Prabhupada recognized him as a great kirtan leader, called him the emperor of kirtan. And Madhvisa said, how do I attract when we're on Harinam? In the 60s, before there was major book distribution, every day chanting in the streets. Every major city around the world. They thought there were millions of Hare Krishnas in the world, even though there was just a few thousand. But they were prominent because they were always out chanting. And we were so different from everyone in the world, you couldn't help but notice us. So besides being in they say in England, the city squares, and the center, the city centers. In the US, they say downtown, center city. Same thing. So that's where we were, chanting. And then we were in the airports. So everyone was seeing the devotees. So Madhvisa said, how do we attract these people when we're chanting? Prabhupada said, we're not trying to attract them. We want to attract Krishna. That's our goal. Everything we do is to attract Krishna. 24-hour kirtan. Where does it take place? Right in front of Krishna Balaram. To attract Krishna. If we had some other idea, we'd have 24-hour kirtan out in the street to attract the crowd. We're not trying to attract crowds. We want to attract Krishna. And Prabhupada, he knew that process, as Maharaj said this morning in class. Was it the class he said this morning? When that devotee talked about the young devotee girl, I just read Nectar of Devotion, saying to Prabhupada, well, should I follow this gopi, follow in the footsteps, this gopi, this person, this personality? And Prabhupada wouldn't even pay attention. He said he was looking at this devotee, talking this. And then finally he said, you follow this devotee in Vrindavan, this personality. You follow me, the founder Acharya of ISKCON. It's always our business. and his disciples and grand disciples, our business is to follow him. That's my business. And then the next generation, we should be so fanatical in presenting what Srila Prabhupada presented that you're following him exactly as well. She said, not some hodgepodge. Prabhupada would use that word, hodgepodge, especially about Hindu religion. Hodgepodge, all mixed up. This, that, the other thing. Prabhupada was not hodgepodge. Bhubaneswar, he said, class, three things you have to do in class. He would give these very wonderful classes, sometimes very short. What were the three things? Establish Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I'm spirit soul, not this body. And my business is servant of Krishna. Servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Same thing Lord Chaitanya says. Nothing changes. And neither did Prabhupada change it. He said that. And he did that when he came to America. I hear these things. I hear it today. Prabhupada, what he did is dated. That was 50 years ago. It's not how we do things now. Prabhupada went to the USA, to New York City, 500 years after Lord Chaitanya. What did he do? He sat down in the park, chanted Hare Krishna. And if you look at his letters, when he answers questions, he always said, kirtan, coal, kartals. That's it. Keep it simple, he said. We're not entertainers. We're devotees trying to attract Krishna. He said, you use the mridanga, you play the kartals, so people don't get overwhelmed, so that they can hear the mantra. And of course, Prabhupada chanted that mantra very clearly. You can listen to any kirtan from the beginning on. He said that when once a devotee said, well, Prabhupada, it was so many years ago when Lord Chaitanya was here. He said the same thing, everything is different now. We have big cities, skyscrapers, all these things. When Lord Chaitanya was here, none of that was there. Traveling by bullock cart, no big buildings. People sleeping under the tree, little simple shacks, grass shacks. But things are different. How did Prabhupada respond? He said, what's different? Birth, old age, disease, and death. That's what's there. This is the concern. He said, so many years ago, 100 years ago, what did they do? People were in their villages. They grew seed. What kind of seed? To make the oil for lamps. Castor seed. Yes, castor seed. Very good. Crushing the castor seed, you get castor oil. Just like we do here at night. We have the ghee. We offer the ghee lamp. So that's all they did. He said, so what have you accomplished? 100 years later, you have electric light. So much difficulty just so you can have electric light. Everyone working so hard to have a fast car. Prabhupada called it the rat race. Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto. He was translating it. I told you I would go off track. He was translating 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 1975, in Hawaii. I was his servant. My family was living there, wife and child there. And while Prabhupada was there, I had been his servant 2 years. I was distracted. I would go off shopping. Had to do shopping. Me and my friend, he just left. Ham's avatar Prabhu. He just left his body some months ago, just 6 months ago. Well, he had brought a car. This was 1975. He shipped a car from the U.S. mainland to Hawaii. This car was an old car, 1950 Ford. In the old days, they made cars all metal. You say like a tank. So we went shopping one day, and just from the temple was just a 5-minute drive to the big supermarket. And him and I are in the front seat of the car. He's driving, and in the back were our wives. And we were on a highway, going normal speed, maybe 50 kilometers an hour. And the car went through the red light, very high speed, like 100 kilometers an hour. And as we were crossing, it slammed into the driver's door. Slammed into it, 100 kilometers an hour. And I saw the car coming at us. So I was the passenger, and I could see it. And the first thing I thought went through my head was, this can't happen to me. That was my thought. And then this car hit us so hard. And in that moment, my mind went back to a football game when I was just like 12, 13 years old, and somebody tackled me who weighed much, much more than I did. And he hit me so hard. And again, my mind went all the way back to that place. And the car spun around, and my door flew open. And both myself and Ham's avatar, the driver, we flew out the door into the street. If that didn't happen, we both would have died. But we got thrown into the street, had injuries. So that evening, of course, I would go massage Srila Prabhupada in the evening, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Of course, I didn't show up that night. I couldn't move. We went to the hospital. They let us go in an hour, gave us some painkillers, and said, you're fine. There were 3 people in the other car. They all died. So then, in the evening, Prabhupada's ringing his bell. And my godbrother, Paramahamsa Swami, he was one of my best friends traveling with Srila Prabhupada. He went into the room, and Prabhupada is so wonderful. He said, where's Srutakirti? He would say that every now and then. He said that here, Krishna Balaram Mandir.